Russia keeps murdering civilians in Ukraine. And overnight, another war crime. It fired a missile at Ukraine's second biggest city, Kharkiv, and destroyed a residential building. 6 civilians dead, at least 16 injured. It's just pure terrorism. And now nearly 20 former US generals, ambassadors and officials have signed an op-ed urging US President Joe Biden to send more weapons, but also longer range weapons to Ukraine. They say Ukraine's being given only enough weapons to stop Russia, not beat it. And they say the very effective HIMARS missile systems that it's been given, well, they're great, but they have a range of, about 100K or something? And they say Ukraine needs systems that can strike nearly 400 kilometres. So what should we do to help? Joining me is Jack KEANE, a retired 4-star general and former Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army. He is now Chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General KEANE, thank you for your time. These 20 top retired ambassadors, generals and security officials say in their letter that if Ukraine isn't given better weapons, Joe Biden risks turning victory into defeat. Are they right?
Yeah, well, I certainly have read that letter, and I couldn't agree more with it. Actually, what's happening on the ground now is testimony to the content of that letter. And by that I mean is that the Ukrainian forces have been planning for weeks a counteroffensive in the Kherson city area and in the larger oblast or province that Kherson city resides in. And what they've been doing is taking away the ground lines of communication or the bridges that provide the resupply to that city. And they have successfully done that. The Russians have happened to move some forces into the area to reinforce it, but they have not begun the counteroffensive. And our sources in the Ukrainian military are telling my analysts at the Institute for the Study of War that the reason why they haven't begun the counteroffensive is because they're not certain that the United States and the international community will be able to sustain the equipment that they need for the offensive to be successful. So they have, in a sense, paused that. They are also conducting sabotage and espionage against bases in Crimea, an air base and also a supply base. And the reason for that is because much of the supplies that are generated to help the Russian forces in the south come out of the Russian bases in Crimea. But we're seeing a pause in the counteroffensive due largely about the concern of U.S. and international community support, which is the central issue in the letter that you referenced.
What does Ukraine actually need? What sort of weapons are you talking about?
Yeah, well, they need more HIMARS. These are rocket artillery, and they have positioned HIMARS, which are referred to as GMARS for short, which can go 50, 60 miles with a high degree of accuracy. I mean, this is a 200-pound projectile. It's very much like a precision-guided bomb let out of an airplane. And they have used that very effectively against Russian depots and supply areas, and which has been sustaining their artillery. They need more of it. There's also, the United States has a much larger range a missile called the ATACMS, and that would go close to 300 miles, and that would be very helpful for them to be able to get that weapon system, for example, what it could do in Crimea to the bases there. But for the offensive to succeed, they need more tanks, more artillery, more things to help with their maneuver forces to close with the Russian forces, which are defending in the city. I understand there's going to be another drawdown announced by the United States, I've been told, by an official in the White House today coming this week. So we'll see if any of those, the equipment I'm just suggesting, are on that list. I hope it is on the list. And it's not a question of just providing the equipment. It's a question also of being able to sustain it over time. And that has been an issue in itself. We need to keep up the supply lines and make certain that the volume is consistent over time.